Hi everyone! So today we're going to be taking a look at small houseplants that actually stay small. So all the plants I'm going to be showing you today are going to max out around 12 inches by 12 inches, making them excellent space-saving options for if you don't have a lot of room in your home. Now a lot of these are actually going to stay considerably smaller than 12 inches by 12 inches, and I will be giving you the size, the mature size for each of these plants as we go along today. So we are going to be looking at a total of 10 different genus of plants, but we are going to look at several varieties in some of those genus, and I'm actually going to be showing you some new varieties in some of these genus that I haven't shown you before. So should be exciting all around, but I'm going to shift this way slightly so I have room to flash the plants up on screen for you, and then we're going to head into our first plant. And this first plant that I'm going to be showing you today is actually a dwarf variety of another plant. So now is a good time for me to remind you guys that if you ever see a plant that you like, but that you don't really have room for, there might be a dwarf variety of it, so always just Google the plant name, add dwarf onto the end of it, and see if perhaps a smaller variety that you do have space for exists. But this first plant we're going to take a look at is actually a dwarf variety of your common snake plant. So this version is also commonly referred to as a bird's nest snake plant because it does stay in this nice compact little form that looks kind of like a nest. And so this plant is going to only max out anywhere between probably 6 to 10 inches tall and 4 to 6 inches wide. So definitely a good space saving option if you're needing that in your home. Now, just like with your traditional snake plants, these come in a variety of color options as well. Here are a few for you to see here, but I'm sure there are even more beyond that that you could find if you were to go Google it online. And the care requirements for these are exactly the same as your traditional snake plants. So if you had your eye on a traditional full-size snake plant and you just really didn't have room for it in your home, then this would be an excellent alternative for you that's going to stay nice and small. But the next grouping of plants that I want to take a look at are peperomias. So for the most part, almost all peperomias are going to max out somewhere around 12 inches by 12 inches, but a lot of the varieties will stay even smaller than that. And we have looked at many varieties of peperomias together before, such as our Peperomia caparatas with their wrinkly leaves that stay super nice and small and compact. The Peperomia albuvittata, also known as a piccolo banda, once again stays super small and compact. This is going to get nowhere near 12 inches by 12 inches. And of course, if you're into trailing plants, there is the Peperomia prostrata. I have brought mine out here today, my string of turtles. Absolutely love my string of turtles. And trailing plants are an excellent option for small plants as well. And we'll be looking at more varieties of trailing plants here in a second. But that Peperomia prostrata is definitely a good option if you want a space-saving trailing plant. But there are two peperomias that I have recently added to my list of peperomias that I would actually like to own one day that I don't currently own. And interestingly enough, they both have the word ruby in the title. That was purely coincidence. But the first one is called the Peperomia Ruby Glow. And peperomias in general are succulent-like in nature, but this one is even more succulent than the ones that I have shown you before. But I absolutely think this plant is beautiful. These leaves have this green in the middle and then that red around the outside and underneath, hence the name Ruby Glow, and definitely is going to stay nice and small. This one is probably going to max out around about 10 inches high. Now it can get past 12 inches wide, but on some of these plants, you can resolve that issue yourself just by pruning them back as they get too wide for you. So just keep that in mind as we go along today regarding the width of plants. And then also, of course, on any trailing plants we look at today, you can always adjust the length of the plant just by pruning it back. But definitely a good one that is going to stay nice, small, and compact. And if you like red on your plants, this is a great option for you. And so is the next peperomia that I want to look at, and this is a trailing variety. This is called Peperomia Ruby Cascade. And once again, this is a green and red plant, green on the front of the leaves, red on the back of the leaves with these beautiful red stems. And these are tiny little leaves that are probably like, they don't get really much bigger than maybe like nickel to quarter size in nature, but just a gorgeous, gorgeous plant. It's not going to take up a lot of space. Height-wise, it's not going to get very tall at all, no more than like an inch or two. And once again, you can kind of control the spread of it and the length of it. So another great option, especially if you're looking for a trailing plant. Now, another trailing plant that I have really been getting into lately, because I keep seeing them everywhere and I just think they're so freaking cute. And I've been having to refrain from buying one because you guys know I'm not buying new plants right now, saving up for my wish list plants. But it still is just super cute. So if you are in the market and you can afford to buy one, I would highly recommend it. And that is the Callisia repens. This plant is so adorable. The best way I can describe this plant to you is like a mini Tradescantia. So you guys have seen my Tradescantia albuvittata, which I'll flash up here real quick for you. So Tradescantias and Callisias are in the same family of plants. They're just different genuses within that family. So this plant grows in the same type of growth pattern as the Tradescantias, but the Callisia repens here is just much smaller leaves, much smaller spacing between the leaves. And I absolutely love the coloring on this one with the light pinkish purplish look to it. But these do come in a variety of colors. So here's a few here that you can see. The one that we were just looking at, then there's like this kind of golden variety, and then of course a green variety, but there's even a few more than what I'm showing you here. So if you do kind of like the look of this plant, you are looking for a trailing plant, but you don't particularly like that color combination, just go out there and Google Callisia repens and you should be able to find a color option that you like. But once again, this plant's gonna stay small. We're not gonna get more than like an inch or two high, and once again, you can control the width and the length of that plant, but definitely a super cute space-saving compact houseplant. But while we're still on the subject of trailing plants, let's talk about Hoyas, because Hoyas are another great option for space-saving plants and plants that are going to stay small. Now, in particular, you want to look for the small leafed varieties of Hoyas. So for example, you guys have seen my Hoya curtisii plenty of times with its cute little small leaves. So this is an excellent option that is going to stay relatively small. Once again, you're not going to get more than like 1 or 2 inches high, and you can control the spread and the length of the plant. But let's take a look at this absolutely gorgeous Hoya that I have just been admiring lately, and I am not going to attempt to pronounce this name. It is a long and complicated one, so I will just flash it up on screen for you. Now, there is a variegated version of this plant and an unvariegated version of this plant. This is the variegated version, and I think it is absolutely stunning, but if you're into all green plants, just know there is an all green version of this plant as well. But once again, this kind of reminds me a little bit of that Callisia repens we were just looking at in terms of that light coloring, and then when those new leaves come in, they do come in a little bit pink. It's kind of like what you see on a variegated Hoya carnosa compacta. Same kind of situation. Those leaves will come in that pinkish color and then fade out of that pink over time. But absolutely gorgeous. And if you want it to look this light, you need to make sure you're getting a lot of light on that plant. However, even if it's not this light variegated, here's another one that has a little bit more green on it. I still think it's an absolutely gorgeous plant and one that is going to stay small and help save space in your home. But moving on from trailing plants and back into some upright varieties, and a little bit of a backstory on this next photo I'm going to show you of our next plant. So my sister has only ever been gifted 2 plants in her life. I think they're the only 2 plants she's ever actually owned in her life as well. She killed the first one, and so recently when she was gifted the second one, she texted me this photo and said, "What is this and how do I not kill it?" So just so you guys know, this is a Kalanchoe. Let's see if I can remember the second part of the name. I think it's a blossfeldiana. Blossfeldiana? I think it's blossfeldiana. I'll put it up on screen for you guys. And so she sent me this picture and I had to laugh when she sent me that message, but this is a great small succulent type plant that produces beautiful flowers. So if you are looking for a space-saving plant that is going to give you flowers in addition to just green foliage, this would be an excellent option for you. And these stay nice and compact. You're looking at maybe anywhere from 8 to 10 inches tall and 8 to 10 inches wide. Actually, scratch that, you guys. I said that wrong. 8 to 12 inches tall by 8 to 12 inches wide. So this is one of the plants that could hit that 12-inch mark in both height and width, but it should not get any larger than that, and it might actually stay a little bit smaller. And if you are definitely into this flowering look, but you aren't particularly a fan of this color, this plant also comes in a variety of different flower colors, more than probably even what I'm showing you right here, because I'm pretty sure there is one that produces white flowers as well. So once again, just make sure if you are looking to buy one of these that you check the tag to see what color the flowers are going to be. So the next genus of plants that I want to take a look at are actually Oxalis, aka shamrocks or false shamrocks. And we have looked at several Oxalis before, but I don't think you guys are aware of how many uniquely different plants there are in that genus. So just to recap, we have previously looked at the Oxalis triangularis. We have also looked at the Oxalis tetraphylla. And most recently, we have looked at the Oxalis spiralis. And these are all very similar types of Oxalis, and they are good options as well if you're looking for a plant that is going to stay relatively small and compact. And these particular varieties are going to max out anywhere from 6 to 8 inches in height and up to 12 inches in width. But I am super excited about this next Oxalis that I'm about to show you because it's so different than any of these other ones. This is what you always think of as an Oxalis. But if I showed you this plant, would you think that was an Oxalis? Because it is. And this is actually a very succulent-like Oxalis, and this is actually called an Oxalis palmifrons. And it's called that because each of these leaves at the end of these stems look like palms, like from a palm tree. And so super adorable, cute little plant here. I mean, come on, that is so cute. And this actually stays relatively smaller than the other Oxalis that we were just looking at. So this is gonna max out at about 3 inches high. And then once again, the width, you have control over that. You can just prune it back. Now, if you let it just go to town, it could get up to probably about 2 feet wide. But once again, as long as you keep it trimmed up, you can have it be whatever width you want. And talk about color varieties, you guys. So I really like this one because it's kind of got like, the leaves kind of are like green in the middle and then it kind of gets purplish on the edges. But there's also like a version of this plant that is like totally pinkish reddish. There's also an all green version of this plant. There's also like reddish orangish versions of this plant, some yellowish versions of this plant. There are just a ton of options when it comes to this adorable little Oxalis palmifrons. So definitely keep this one in mind if you're needing a small plant that is going to stay small and save you space in your home. But the next plants I want to talk about are actually air plants. And some air plants can get relatively large, but a lot of them stay pretty small. So there's 2 in particular I want to take a look at today. Toby's about to come say hi possibly. I see him creeping over here. You come say hi? I'm trying to film. Okay, so Toby has decided to lay down over here with us, and he does have a little bit of a cold right now, so if you hear sneezing in the background, that's what you're hearing. But let's get back to these air plants. So there are 2 air plants in particular that I have been seeing more often lately in stores, and I absolutely love them because they incorporate some color. And so the first one I want to take a look at, once again, I don't know if I want to try to pronounce this, so I'm going to flash it up on screen for you, but this is a beautiful variety of air plant that is green, and then if you get it into enough light, it will blush on the tips of it and become like a reddish pinkish coloring like you're seeing here. Absolutely gorgeous. And this is going to max out around 11 inches by 11 inches, but in my experience, air plants lots of times in our homes don't actually get to those max sizes, but there's always a possibility it could happen, so just keep that in mind. But super cute, adorable plant, and you don't have to mess with soil. Now, similar to this one is the Tillandsia ionantha, and also, once again, has these beautiful tips that will blush into that reddish color. And I had to use this picture, you guys, because how cool is that? That is a bunch of them growing in a clustered group on a tree, and I think that is absolutely gorgeous. So recognize that's a bunch of different plants, but each one of those little plants will remain nice and small for you. And this one's gonna get anywhere from 6 to 12 inches tall, but they stay relatively narrow, so like 4 inches wide. And they get these long purple flowers. I don't know if you can see them in this picture. If I can zoom it in some more for you, I will. But yeah, these beautiful long purple flowers as well, which just adds to the unique look of this plant. But definitely 2 excellent options if you're looking for some small plants that are going to stay small. Now, the next plant that I want to look at is actually related to the air plants. Once again, these are in different genuses, but they are in the same family of plants. And this is what is known as a Cryptanthus bivittatus. Now, there are other varieties of Cryptanthus, but a lot of them will get bigger than 12 inches. And so that's why I wanted to focus on this one specifically, because this one is going to stay relatively small. And by relatively small, I mean about 8 inches high by about 12 inches wide. And once again, this is a plant that comes in a variety of different colors. So I really like this kind of pinkish, reddish color here, but there are some out there that are all green. There are some that are green with a little bit of pink on them. There are some that are kind of like more of a mauve color. There's just a lot of different options, even beyond what I'm showing you here. So once again, if you are interested in this plant, I would definitely Google it and look at all the different color varieties that are out there. But these plants are also very similar to bromeliads. So if you guys have any experience with bromeliads and you like bromeliads, but you need something a little bit smaller, this is definitely a great option for you. Now, these next plants I want to look at, you might be shocked when I tell you what genus it is, because you're probably going to think there's no way there's a plant that's that small in that genus. And that is Alocasia. Now, for the most part, Alocasias do get relatively tall, and depending on the variety, they can get relatively wide or extremely wide as well. But there are 2 varieties in particular that are going to stay nice and small and compact for you. These plants are going to max out around 10 inches high by about 8 inches wide, and you have seen one of them before, but I brought her out again. Let me grab her. So this is my beautiful black velvet Alocasia with its super velvety leaves, and as you can see, we are not that tall. We are nice and short and compact. Now the leaves do stretch towards the light, but you can tame that to an extent by using support posts and attaching the petioles to the support post to kind of pull them in a little bit if you need to. But another variety very similar to the black velvet Alocasia that I absolutely adore is the Alocasia Ninja. And as you can see, very similar looking, but the veining is much more pronounced on these, but it's going to stay that same size that I mentioned before. So if you do like Alocasias and you've never owned one because you're like, I don't really have space for them, this would work well, hopefully for you, assuming you have room for 10 inches high by about 8 inches wide. But the last group of plants I want to look at, and you know, going into this video, you guys probably thought, this is all going to be succulents. It's only going to be succulents and that's all it's going to be. And a lot of the plants we've looked at today are succulent-like in nature, but I specifically wanted to not do all succulents on this video because we all know succulents stay small, but I felt the need to wrap up with some succulents, and we're going to look at a very unique succulent that we've never looked at before here in a second. But I had to have them on here because they do stay small, right? Wouldn't be doing my due diligence if I didn't include them. So some succulents that we have looked at previously are the Echeveria with its very rosette-shaped leaves. We've also looked at the Graptoveria, similarly rosette kind of shaped leaves, but it gets a little bit taller in nature here in its growth pattern. We've also looked at several types of Haworthia, the Haworthia attenuata, sometimes also referred to as a zebra plant. And then we've looked at the Haworthia retusa with its adorable little leaves that have like clear little sections called windows on them, and it's just a super cute, super compact plant. So succulents like these are a great option, but can we just take a look at this cute little plant right here? This is what is known as, I think it's pronounced Albuca spiralis, but more commonly you're going to hear it referred to as Frizzle Sizzle. That's right, I said Frizzle Sizzle, which sounds like the goofiest name ever, but it's perfect for such a unique, kind of goofy looking plant. But I think this plant is absolutely adorable. Once again, it is a succulent. It is a bulb-based succulent, so that is different than the other succulents that I just shown you. It does grow from a bulb, and that bulb helps retain a lot of the moisture for the plant. Another interesting thing about this plant is that it's one of those plants that grows in the reverse of what we're used to. So this plant actually grows more during the winter months than it does during the summer months. And this one is interesting. So you see all these little corkscrew leaves on here that make it so unique and cute. And it kind of acts like hair, like legit, you guys. Only, well, anybody out there who has curly hair knows, which by the way, you guys, my hair is naturally curly. I do straighten it. If I can find like a totally non-embarrassing photo to throw up here for you, I will. Or we can just go full-fledged embarrassing circa 1996. Don't judge. We'll get into a discussion about why I straighten my hair right now in a different video, but if you have curly hair, you know that if you get into high humidity, that curl like tightens up and it gets even curlier, and if it's dry outside, the curl relaxes a little bit more. So funny thing with this plant, it reacts that way to light. So if you get it in enough super bright direct light, the tighter those little spiral curls will become. If you don't get it in enough light, the looser they will become, and the more they will just look like a wave in the leaf. So I thought that was kind of interesting. It's a very cool, cute, quirky little plant, and it's definitely going to save you some space because this maxed out at 8 inches high by 8 inches wide. So definitely another great option for if you're looking for a small plant that is going to stay small. Now there are lots of other small plants, but once again, if I tried to include every possible plant in every possible video I do, we'd be here for days on end. But if there's a plant that I did not mention in this video that you personally own and knows stays small and doesn't take up a lot of space, let's help spread the word about additional plants by commenting about it down below. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this video today. If so, please be sure to hit that like and or subscribe button down below, and I look forward to seeing you guys again next time. Aloha!